It seems like every year around this time, we start getting major launches of a really interesting and sometimes really important makeup. And when I say important makeup, it's like the makeup that kind of sticks with you from year to year. And right now we have one of those from Patrick Ta. This is his new foundation. It is let me just give you all the words. Honestly, I'm sick of people just throwing all the words at a product. Major Skin Hydra Luxe Luminous Skin Perfecting Foundation. And of course, shortly followed up by Mario's launch of his two latest products. This is the Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder, and this is his setting powder, the Surreal Setting Powder Setting Spray, the Surreal Skin Soft Setting Spray. So Patrick Ta released this foundation a few weeks before the Makeup by Mario, so I had time to try this out on its own. And here's the thing, with foundation, I always try it out before I read reviews because I really want to know how it's going to work on my skin and then see what everyone else has been saying. This has been talked about a lot. It ranges the gamut from people loving it to people hating it. Here's the thing about makeup artist brands. I pay a lot of attention to how the makeup artist uses their products, and that gives me a really good idea of the intention behind the products. So if you're going to bother spending the $58 for the 1 ounce on this gorgeous premium package with what I think is a gorgeous premium foundation, you should really pay attention to a lot of Patrick's videos, see how he actually uses it, how he actually applies it, and then see how it works for your skin. Now, first off, I'm going to say, yeah, it's great for those of us like me, mature skin, normal to dry combo. You can be a little bit oily, but if you're oily, you have to prep your skin. I mean, isn't that a takeaway from makeup all the time? If you're using a product that's not right for your skin, you got to take the extra skin preps. So when I see people saying oh, it didn't last on my oily skin, it broke up on my oily skin, I'm like, yeah, you need to do a little skin prep. So use something like either a gripping primer or a really blurring primer, something that's really going to create a barrier between your skin, keeping those oils underneath the primer and allowing the foundation to do its work. Now you can tell this foundation here, I have this shade 10 Neutral. The shade range is 30 shades. It's a really nice shade range. I was actually surprised because 10, that's kind of far up in the shade range, and I am a light skinned girly, obviously. So I was like, 10, that's a high number. And don't we all get wrapped up in the numbers, like the sizes of our clothes, where we are in color charts? It's kind of annoying. But my point is, pay attention to what your skin is and what the product is. Now, it says right on here that it is a Hydra Luxe Luminous. I think he uses 3 different weights of hyaluronic acid. There's squalane. I don't use separate hyaluronic acid in my skincare. There is a squalane in a moisturizer I use. So when I'm using this, I don't use also my squalane-based moisturizer. You kind of got to balance out what you're using. Now, I actually did my skincare hours ago today, so I don't need to do any additional skin prep. Some people, if you're going right from your skincare to using this foundation, try and maybe give 15 minutes in between for your skincare to sink in and dry down a little bit. If you don't have that time, then maybe you want to, lighten up a little bit on the hydrating ingredients. That's a problem for me because I want all of my skincare to do all the things that I have it for. I do not want to count on my foundation as being something that's going to take over for my skincare. That's just not how this works for me. All right, as you can see, this is a very thin, runny consistency. I like that because it tells me right away it's going to be very lightweight. Let's just start and get it on. Patrick usually uses a beauty blender for applying. I prefer using a brush and then going over the top with a beauty blender to do the blending. That's kind of preference. I'm not a full-on beauty blender to apply my foundation, but to each their own. Do what you like. Obviously my eyebrows are done. I am testing something out. We'll see how that goes. All right, so I've loaded my brush with a little bit of the product. I like to swirl it around in my hand a little bit just to blend it into the bristles. Here we go. Straight in. And you can see immediately that that's a really nice color match for me. And one of the things that I love about this the most now, even though I am a woman of a certain age, I'm 54, I don't have wrinkles so much in my skin. I do have the 11 creases, and that's something that I have to deal with when it comes to makeup. I'm used to makeup either sitting in those lines or just not filling in there nicely. This has been surprising in how it feels like it it almost like stretches over the 11s. It doesn't sit in there deeply. Of course it's going to sit in there. I mean, it's basically a crevice in my skin, but it doesn't cause this like separation. It's really interesting. The formulation on this is, well, it's definitely a new technology. There's no other foundation like this, which is incredible. Like, I love how foundation is kind of like becoming the most like technological thing that we have in our makeup right now. It just keeps on getting better and better like every 6 months. It's amazing. All right, so I've done this half of my face and my forehead, and let's just give you a little look to see the difference. Now, obviously it's very glowy, fine, I like that, but you see how it just like nicely evens out my skin tone? I just feel like I'm getting that my skin but better, which that phrase is used constantly, but I really feel that's what this does. Now, another thing that this does really nicely is it blends with your other cream and liquid products. And I've seen Patrick do a few videos where he's doing underpainting. Don't be scared by underpainting. You're basically putting on your cream, contour, and blush first, and then going with your foundation all around it, kind of blending it all together. It's easy, it's lighter weight, so you're not doing like layer on top of layer on top of layer. So it's a great way for those of us who sometimes don't want like a super full coverage look, but you do want to use all the products that you love. Underpainting is definitely perfect for that. And I have used this foundation with underpainting techniques and it works so beautifully. I have never been much of an underpainting girly before, but I'm super sold on it. But I will show you what is really nice about how well this works with cream products is when I do my nose contour, because that's the area when I am, painting on another layer that it can sometimes like disturb my foundation. There's something about this that doesn't happen. Now, normally 2 pumps does my face really well. Today it's 2.5, but I have a feeling it's because my skincare, like I'm holding the mirror up in front of you the whole time, you can't even see me. I have a feeling it's because I did my skincare hours ago, so I'm not getting that substantial glide that I normally have. It's not dragging or anything, but I'm just not getting as much spreadability as I get when I go in, say like 15, 30 minutes after I've done my skincare. Not to mention, something just happens that whenever I'm on camera, I just end up putting more makeup on than normal. I hope you can tell like what a really beautiful blend that is, how well it meshes with my skin. I'm not getting any collecting around the corners of my nose. Here's where my lips kind of turn down. There's like a little bit of, I don't know, is it a line? Is it a crease? Whatever that is. That's usually where makeup collects for me. It doesn't happen with this. And hopefully you can see right in my 11s here, it's not like really looking like it's sinking in. It looks like it's kind of like smoothing across. Now you can see I am dabbing it in. I do that with all my foundations. I really like to make sure that I've really got that pressed in and around that area, just doing the best I can for what my face is. It's not anything different for me when I'm using the Patrick Ta's, what I always do. And you can tell even looking at the back of my hands, that's just from like, moving it around with a brush, what a really nice job the coverage is on here. Super lightweight, super hydrating. I love how it feels. I've worn this a bunch of times, and at first, when I first wore it, I was kind of stunned by how much I liked it. I didn't read anyone's comments. The second time I wore it, I was like, oh my God, I really do like this. And that's when I started reading other comments. So that's when I started thinking about how people are using it. I will say for me, I am always a powder down the foundation kind of girl. I do not like to give it a chance to move around at all. Some people, because their skin is so dry, they don't like to use powder. They just want to use a little bit. I get that. I really think that with this foundation on my skin type, normal to dry, it needs a little bit of powder. Now, like I said, I do like to go around with the Beauty Blender just to even out a little bit, but this doesn't really even look like it needs evening out at all. But I'm going to do a little bit just to make sure. Before I go on to do the rest of my makeup off camera, before I come back to show you the other products, I'm going to do a little bit of the contour on the nose. I'm using Patrick Ta's She's Statuesque. This is the Cream Contour Powder Bronzer Duo. I like this shade and this actual formula. It's really nice for giving me just like a light natural contour. I don't want a severe contour, but especially for on camera, I really like to just carve out the nose a little bit. Now, as you can see, I've used his brush, which is also, it's just one of my favorite brushes to use for this. But if you can tell, that has not disturbed my foundation at all. There's something about this formula that is so beautiful that even though it still feels like it's wet on the skin so products can blend in there nicely, it doesn't move around when you're blending your other cream products into it. It is super, super special like that. All right, I'm going to do the rest of my cream products and we'll come back to set. Okay, all my cream products are on: bronzer, blush, highlighter, concealer, and actually I even did a little bit of a cream eyeshadow just because I was feeling lazy. Now I like to take my beauty blender and just kind of bounce around the edges to make sure everything is nicely blended. You can see my nose contour isn't broken up in the least. Everything looks just so seamless. So now we'll set with the Makeup by Mario. This is the Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder. I got it in the shade 2 Neutral, which is the second lightest shade. There is a pink shade. It's like light pink, fair pink, something like that. It is very brightening. I have a lot of pink powders right now, and I thought it was time that I just like get myself back to a regular translucent shade. I literally just spilled that all over. Cool. Okay, well, that's going to be a mess for me to clean up when I'm done here. So I don't treat this any differently than I treat any of my other loose powders. When I'm setting, especially under the eyes, I always go in with a brush first. A brush puts down the least amount of product. That's how you can help from getting it to be like looking cakey and dry. So I'm just going to dab out the creases here, and I'm going to show you how beautifully blurring this powder is. I'm going to do just the right side of my face first. So straight away, eye to eye, I think you can see. I'm going to continue powdering around the rest of my face on the right side so you can see how incredible this is. It's super duper lightweight. Now listen, we all lost our minds the minute that Givenchy changed the formula for the Prism Libre powders. That was like a devastating couple of weeks until Mario came out with this powder line. So you can tell I'm barely using any powder because I'm using this tiny brush, and I'm just tapping it in lightly. Now this powder comes in 7 shades. It gives such a beautiful soft blur. If you have pores, say goodbye to them. So even though I've used the Petric Taupe with a couple other powders in between, I've been using the Tarte powder, which I like a lot, the creaseless setting powder. As a matter of fact, the interesting thing is this setting powder is, let me see here, 7 grams of product for $36, and the Mario is 15 grams of powder for $38. So you're getting twice the amount of powder from Mario for only $2 more than the Tarte. So I think by now you're getting the picture that this is a really beautiful blurring, like softly blurring powder. It doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't feel cakey. As a matter of fact, throughout the day, it stays looking like this. Now I'd recently worn this combination topped with the setting spray, we'll get to that in a minute, for a very long day. We had company over, and I had this full face on from 4:30 in the afternoon until 1:30 in the morning. So that's 9 hours. And when I went to bed, I do the same thing I always do, no matter how tired I am. I stick my face right into the mirror and I look around to see what's going on. It looked just as beautiful as when I first put it on. I mean, maybe a little tiny bit like she's been wearing makeup all day, but it wasn't broken up. It wasn't like looking cakey or crusty. It was still smooth. It looked blurred. It was still pretty 9 hours later. I'm gonna finish powdering up the other side of my face. All right, so for me, this is a perfect amount of setting. I haven't gone in to use a powder puff at all. I wouldn't do like a full on set again with the powder puff over top everything that I had already powdered. I would just go in targeted areas where I know I might get some breakthrough shine. All right, I have all my makeup on. I'm just gonna go back over my cheeks with a little bit of the Patrick Ta. This is the Double Take Cream Powder Blush Duo in the shade Not Too Much. For me, this is one of my favorite shades, and I like to just bring a little bit of life back into the cheeks. I don't need a ton. All right, now in the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Soft Setting Spray. This is supposed to give us 12 hours of like natural finish wear, and that light mist, I love it. Can you see that? Gorgeous. It doesn't leave any giant drops on the face, and you can either just let it sit like this to dry. Sometimes I will just go over with the Beauty Blender just to tap it in. But the one thing I always do is I use a little fan because I can't be bothered to sit and wait. Now when I do bother to use setting sprays, because I really want to lock it down because of whatever conditions, it's either going to be all day or the weather. So I will take a little bit of setting powder, put it on the back, or put it on a puff, and I will just go in my targeted areas where I might get shiny and just make sure there's a little bit of extra coverage there. And actually, I think I misspoke. It's the powder that's supposed to give 12 hours of wear, and the setting spray is 16. Now, I'm only saying this because I've really been putting the Patrick Ta through the ringer. I think it has replaced my NARS Light Reflecting as my #1 foundation. Not only is it the perfect shade for my skin tone, because I have to buy 2 NARS and I have to mix and match them together, but I love how it wears. I just love how it feels on the skin. Not that I still don't love my NARS Light Reflecting, but this is just kind of inched up a little bit over top of that. I love everything about it. I love how it looks. I love how it wears. I love how it feels. I love how when it is breaking down around the 7-hour point, it doesn't like, break up a ton around my nose or around anywhere specifically. It all starts to like break down evenly. So it doesn't look like I'm a broken up mess. It's just all wearing away evenly. Although, since I've been using the Mario products with it, the breakdown at the 7-hour spot doesn't happen. These two are so friggin' good. It's nice to have something that is replacing the Givenchy. Normally I don't use my regular setting powders under my eyes, but I think that this is really nice. It's light. It doesn't look cakey. It doesn't settle into my fine lines. It doesn't do all the stuff that we don't want it to do. It does exactly what we want it to do. It's light. It doesn't feel like anything on the skin. It doesn't look cakey. It just evens me out, makes everything smooth, secures my foundation for a longer amount of time. It's just doing everything I want it to do. Not to mention all these products are vegan and cruelty free, which is important. And even though these are in the mid $30 range, I think they are very well money spent items. And at $58 for this, it was hard to spend $58 on this. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm actually not going to have a hard time when it's time to replace it because it's so worth it for me. Now, here's 2 other things that I probably should mention. I talked about skin prep and how important that is, especially if you have oily skin. But the other thing that you should probably consider for skin prep is the actual condition of your skin. If you have drier, flakier skin, even if you have very oily skin, you need to be doing some sort of exfoliation once, maybe twice a week. That goes a long way with really how your products sit on your skin. And using something like this, a little tinkle razor, if you do have a lot of like vellus hairs on your face, because your makeup sits differently when there's a lot of hair on your face. So just getting rid of that excess excess hair. It doesn't have to be your whole face if you don't want to do it. It could just be wherever you feel like you just look fuzzy. But just getting rid of that peach fuzz really helps your products, especially foundations and powders, lay so much better, look so much smoother. It's a big difference. So even though I became obsessed with this early on and hard, using these 2 products with it, it's like a magical trio. And I don't like to say that lightly because not all of us have the same skin, duh. But if your skin's not like mine and you're willing to do the prep, I think you would really like this foundation. As for this powder, I think anyone is gonna love it, especially because of the 7 shades that it comes in. Sometimes I really hate doing videos where I'm gushing all over how much I love the product because it makes me feel like you guys think I'm like just hopping on a bandwagon. It takes me a while of using products to be able to gush about it because I have to put it through lots of different scenarios to see if it's really worth it to me. I never use a product 1 or 2 times and then gush about it. I mean, you might even be able to tell by how gross this bottle is covered in my fingerprints that it's been used way more than 1 or 2 times. And if you're new to my channel, if you would do me a favor and please hit the like, hit the subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, all the things that validate me and remind you that I'm still here. That way you can come back and see more of me sometimes actually hating on products. All right, you guys, as always, I want to thank you so much for being with me and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.